Good evening, YouTube. My name is Lauren Sevier, and did y'all know that Louisiana has its own lycanthrope? No, but for real though. We actually have our own werewolf here in Louisiana, and since I write young adult fantasy, I kind of wanted to talk to y'all about this today. First things first, I love werewolves, and I'm not talking just like the Edward, Bella, Jacob, werewolf romantic thing. I love like the Wolfman gory horror werewolf too. I love the wolf pack family mate for life werewolves. I am like so trash for this trope and all the themes that are explored in werewolf lore and werewolf literature. I love it so much. So much. Anyway, so I was thinking about this the other day about how we have our own version of our own like werewolf lore and werewolf story. And I kind of thought that it was super interesting that we did and kind of wanted to talk to you guys. Maybe it'll spark a story idea, who knows? But yeah, so a little bit of background about Louisiana and its culture really quickly, just so all of this kind of has some context. So Louisiana is sort of a weird state just because we're at the mouth of the Mississippi. And so historically speaking, when the United States was very young, there were several other countries that wanted to own Louisiana because they could control the trade route, and that meant money, and that meant power, and yada yada blah blah blah. So like the French owned us for a while. We have a lot of like Native American culture down here. We have, Haitians who came over because of slavery. We have the Spanish who owned us for a while. We're literally the only state that still has parishes instead of counties, and that's directly because like this other country owned us for a really long time and things just never changed. So we have like our own language, Cajun French. We have a rich and varied culture that comes from a lot of different places. A lot of different types of people contributed to this. And so we were kind of like a little mini melting pot down here in Louisiana. So because of that, is kind of how a lot of these like monster myths and stuff sort of get the Louisiana treatment, and we have our own version. So meet the Rougarou. That's right, our werewolf is called the Rougarou. It is spelled a couple of different ways. I'm going to, if I could learn how to work my hands, put them right above my hands right here. The different spellings of them, there should be about 3. Anyway, a Rougarou is the Cajun French version of what people in like 14th to 16th century France called a loup-garou, which is literally just French for werewolf. Back in the day in France, like way back in the day, again, 14th to 16th century, they would use stories of loup-garous to like scare their children into staying out of the forests, and they would like blame a bunch of horrible stuff that happened on them because that's so much easier than just saying like, hey, this guy probably stole my stuff. And fun fact that I found out when I was researching a little bit for this video, actually, they used to have like trials, just like witch trials, but they were loup-garou trials in France. Like weird, right? Anyway, all of this is to sort of preface that when these people immigrated from France, and some of them went, to Canada, and some of them came here to the American South, they brought this like mysticism and stuff with them. Now, a lot of this is oral tradition, so there's not a ton of like source material for this. A lot of it is contradictory, and there's like a ton of different versions. So I'm just going to kind of break down to you what we know about the Rougarou here in Louisiana. First things first, the Rougarou is said to have the body of a man and the head of a wolf. Freaky. Definitely not like, the hot mate for life kind of werewolves that we think of. More like a guy in a really weird mask, but whatever. Another thing is that they're supposed to live in the Louisiana swamplands, and apparently locals started really blaming Rougarous for like the hurricanes and the floods that happened after the French settled here back in the day, which is kind of a really hard thing to put on the poor little Rougarou shoulders, seeing as we have a lot of hurricanes and floods. Also, there's like 2 main ways that I found in my research that you can become a Rougarou. One of which is you get cursed by a witch or a voodoo priestess, because, you know, those are interchangeable, I guess, here in Louisiana, in our minds, in the folklore. And also the second way is because there's a lot of like French Catholics and there's a lot of Catholicism like in a lot of our culture and a lot of the like symbolism for a lot of the festivals and stuff that we still have to this day. Another way that they said you could become a Rougarou was if you did not do what you were supposed to for Lent for 7 years. And if you didn't do that for 7 years, you like just became a Rougarou. Now, there were a couple of ways that you could stop being a Rougarou, one of which was there was this really weird time frame. If you passed your curse on in 101 days, like either by biting somebody, which is more of a typical werewolf thing, or by cutting them and drawing blood, because whatever, I guess it's just like a blood thing, I don't know, then you pass your curse on to somebody else, and then you can stop being a Rougarou yourself. So that was one way. Let's see. Oh, here's a really fun fact. Apparently, Rougarous can only count to 12. So the way to keep a Rougarou away from your door or out of your house or to protect yourself from them was to put like 12 pennies or 12 objects in a row, like on your door frame or your windowsill, because when they came to try and like sneak in your window or your door, they would be stuck trying to count 13 objects, but they can only count to 12, so they'd like start over and get confused until the sun came up and they'd have to run away, because apparently they can't count to 13. So, you know, that's a fun fact. Also, if you didn't have 13 pennies or pebbles or objects or whatever, apparently you could just put like a colander, like the kind that you use to make, you know, Kraft mac and cheese in front of your door, and the same sort of thing applied. Like they would be stuck trying to count all the holes and they couldn't count past 12, so you were good. Weird. Anyway, let's see. And oh, there's this other thing that I heard through an oral tradition, just physically actually heard from someone like in passing, and I couldn't find anything when I was researching to sort of corroborate this in the folklore or the mythology behind the Rougarou. But it's something about like they would grab your toes or bite your toes if they got in your house at night. And I don't know, I just thought that was like a really weird thing that I heard down here about them once. A couple of honorable mention, just tidbits. There is actually a baseball team called the Rougarous, and Houma, Louisiana actually has a Rougarou festival every year that's dedicated to passing down the oral tradition of the Rougarous, the history and mythos behind it, all of the fun little things, and, you know, they have people dress up as them and things like that. And so I thought that was really cool that down here in Louisiana we actually have our own werewolf sort of lore, and I thought it'd be really awesome. Maybe it'll inspire you guys to like sit down and write a new take on an old werewolf story kind of thing. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you know, maybe you could teach them to count to 13. I don't know. Anyway, fun monster stuff with Lauren. If you liked this video or you have any other questions, please feel free to comment or like. It would be really cool if you subscribe to my channel, but you absolutely don't have to. Anyway, y'all have a great night. This was super fun. Bye.